What do we got this Christmas? What do we got? What the And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sports Talk Nation. Michael Cohen here with you on this Christmas, and hope everyone's enjoying this holiday season. Merry Christmas to everybody, of course, watching as, the Mets and Yankees, they found a little bit of coal in their stocking, and I don't mean Garrett Cole, for that matter, as far as the Yankees are concerned. Literal lumps of coal in their stocking this Christmas as Yoshinubo Yamamoto has spurned both the Mets and the Yankees to sign with the Los Angeles Dodgers for a $325 million contract over 12 years. And you know what? I'm going to be completely honest with you. I could come on here and rant and rave and rail about how horrible this is, that this is a setback. And yes, I don't know how good Yamamoto is going to be pitching in the States. He's had a terrific track record in Japan, pitched well in the World Baseball Classic. Chances are he's going to be a very, very good pitcher. And yes, he would have been a huge benefit to either the Mets or the Yankees. But I can't come here and be honest with you and tell you that I am going to rant and rave and be upset and be angry, because I'm not that upset. I'm not that upset, and I'm going to explain why. Other than from the fact that, let's be honest, this was all going, just the whole vibe of Yamamoto to coming here to Queens or to the Bronx, it was going to start a whole spiking of the football, which would have been gotten old very, very quickly. Now that we can avoid all that, the focus really should be on what are these two teams going to do now moving forward? Now that Yamamoto has gone to the Dodgers and is now going to be joining Shohei Ohtani, the Dodgers have now spent $1 billion. $1 billion on two players, Ohtani and Yamamoto. Good for them. Now the pressure is on them to go out there and win a World Series. And last I checked, you don't win a World Series in December. And certainly the two teams over my shoulder certainly know a little bit about that. I'll start off on this. I'll start off with the Mets, then I'll go to the Yankees. From the Mets standpoint, they did everything they could to make this deal happen. Steve Cohen, David Stearns, they wined and dined Yamamoto. They hosted him at Cohen's house. They did everything they could to make him comfortable, to make him want to come to Queens, even when rumors and reports indicated that the Mets were really the third horse in this race. Between the Yankees, the Dodgers, and the Mets, it looked like the Yankees and the Dodgers were going to be the favorites. But the Mets went out there. They offered the most money of the two New York teams, $325 million. But Yamamoto decides that he'd rather go to L.A. And it's obvious why. Dodgers are closer to competing for a championship right now than the Mets are. The Mets right now have a lot of uncertainty as they go into this 2024 season. And already I'm seeing reports by Andy Martino and SNY that the Mets may not go after or pursue any so-called top-flight pitching that is out there in the market right now, because really the two big names that stand out are Blake Snell, formerly of the Padres, and Jordan Montgomery, who has been pretty much everywhere. He's been with the Yankees, he's been with the Cardinals, he's been with the Texas Rangers. That's really it. So the Mets are not going to go out there and pursue a big-time name right now. And it feels like this entire offseason, the Mets have been kind of taking their foot off the pedal a little bit after years of being the story and the team in December and in January that's making all these big moves and dishing out all these big contracts. The Mets have been much more conservative in their approach, going out there, swinging a deal as they did with the Brewers for Adrian Hauser and outfielder Tyrone Taylor. And Hauser more of a 4-5 starter who could help the Mets in the back end of their rotation this year. You almost get the sense that the Mets are looking forward more towards 2025 and 26 than they are this year. And look, they have a lot of money in the books that they're trying to get rid of. You still got, let's just be honest, they still got the Verlander and Scherzer contracts that are on the books. $20 million each to them this year that the Mets have to pay out. So you have that in there. Plus, the Mets have a lot of other big contracts that are still on their books. Starling Marte, last couple of years has been battling injuries, especially last year. Owed $19 million this year. Okay? You're paying another $13 million to Jose Quintana this year. You're paying $10.5 million to Jeff McNeil this year. So the Mets have a lot of money on the books that you would think that they would like to shed. Certainly, I would have, obviously, Quintana, Verlander, Scherzer deals. They want to get those all off the books and clear those away before they make any real big-time splashes. Even though you got to give credit to Steve Cohen, he was willing to go out there and make that move for Yamamoto in spite of all of that, in spite of all those truths. So where do the Mets go from here? Do they pivot towards more of this, what's feeling like more like a rebuild, focusing on guys in the minor league system, maybe trading a few more players away? We'll see how this season progresses. That's kind of the feeling that I am getting. Now they could, as is mentioned in many reports, could go out there and kick the tires on a Lucas Giolito, who's been a very average pitcher, kind of bounced around. Shota Imanaga is another Japanese pitcher that's out there who's not considered as good as Yamamoto, but has been pretty good in his career, has pretty good numbers, had a 3.18 ERA last year. He's a consideration. Maybe the Mets go out there and try to swing a deal for some pitching, another trade. We'll see what they try to do, but it feels like they're going to take a step back. But I think their real focus is really and should be on their offense because they need help. They need outfield help. They need a designated hitter. They don't have that. There was a report a couple weeks ago that they were looking at Justin Turner, trying to reunite with him, who's had a solid career with the Dodgers after the Mets unloaded him years ago. I don't know if that's really a fit at this point. He's near the end of his career at this point. Even the name Jorge Soler has been thrown out there, who's an experienced DH with the Miami Marlins. So there are places where the Mets need to go to try to field a competitive team, but you just get the sense from the moves they've made and even the lack of huge moves that they're taking a step back. The move to watch, though, for the Mets is this, and they're not going to make that move now. But what is it going to be with Pete Alonso? What is it going to be? Now, I know it takes two to tango on these things, but what are we going to do? What are the Mets going to do about getting him a contract extension? I know that Boris is his agent, which means Boris is going to try to take Alonso to free agency next winter and go for the most money. Do the Mets, if the Mets feel they can make a move, make a signing with an agreement with Alonso, do they get it done now before spring training? Do they do something during the season? Although that's going to be very unlikely with a guy like Boris. That's the big question. And depending on where they are in the standings, if they feel they can't come to terms with Alonso, do they trade him? So I think there's that kind of uncertainty that's surrounding a lot of things that are going on with the Mets right now. Is what do they want to do with Pete Alonso moving forward? As for the Yankees, I think they're in a. I think, look, yes, they offered $300 million. They felt that was a fair offer. They didn't want to go above that. Is that disappointing because for the Yankee fan? I understand it is because they thought they were going to get Yamamoto. They were the favorites, presumably by the media, to get Yamamoto. They had been basically scouting him for almost a year. You had Brian Cashman going out to Japan to watch Yamamoto pitch in Japan last summer, and they even had Zoom calls or depending even on appearances with Hideki Matsui going out to speaking to Yamamoto. They did everything they could to try to get him to come to the Bronx. He goes again for the most money with the LA Dodgers. But I think the Yankees can pivot. I think they can pivot certainly better and compete and are closer to competing for a championship than the Mets are right now, mainly because they have that move for Juan Soto. They have him right now in this outfield. I know he's a pending free agent at the end of this year. But even if they're pitching, they have the ace right now, something the Mets don't have. They have the ace they know in Garrett Cole. They hope to get Carlos Rodon and Nestor Cortes back this year healthy. That'll be a huge plus. And they're rumored to be much stronger in the mix for the Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery type than, let's say, the Mets are. And you can certainly understand that because, look, the Yankees they feel they're close. They feel they have a chance to compete for a division title, if not a playoff berth. Not to mention the Yankees have a lot of young players coming up through the system who have been contributors to this team already. Volpe, who has a gold glove. Austin Wells, who's going to be most likely if not a starter right away out of spring training, but will eventually be the starting catcher for this team, you would have to think. Jason Dominguez is also in the wings, coming off of an injury. Maybe back by the end of the 24 season, if not going forward towards 25. So the Yankees, I feel, are in a slightly better position to just say, okay, whatever with Yamamoto, pivot and keep moving and be in a position to compete and win games and win and be a playoff competitor this year. The Mets, I just don't know. It feels like they're weighing towards 25 because there's going to be some big names out there. Obviously, Juan Soto is going to be a big name out there in next offseason 25. Walker Buehler, Zach Wheeler, former Met, Corbin Burns, Max Fried. Those are just some names out there, pitching wise, that are going to be out there in free agency. The Mets think, hey, let's just coast this year, get those guys next year, and also try to figure out Alonso. That might be what their thinking is. So I know it sounds like we're in for what's going to be a rough season for the Mets, and that's very likely. But that's the approach they're going with right now. They're not going to spend big money like they did last year. They will if they feel they have an opportunity and a shot to get a great player, but they won't do it just for the sake of doing it. And that's really what the situation they find themselves in. For the Yankees, they're also not going to spend unless they feel they have a great shot to get that player. But based on the roster that they have, they're in a better position right now, still, after that Soto deal, to put themselves in position to be a playoff contender here in 2024. So that's where we are, folks. I know it's a lump of coal in the stocking for both fans, but we'll see how things play out here the rest of the offseason. Again, give it a like and subscribe. We'll talk to you later. Leave your comments below.